I've got this down to more of a science now, so hopefully this won't take terribly long.
Yeah, anyways.
Kind of like that
They
game.
ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it.
In all fairness, both games are everything's decided by the end of the second turn.
True. So, on that note, welcome to Path of Casuals and Filth. My name is Mick, I play Eldar, and this is the show where I hang out with friends and get a little less bad at 40k and other tabletop wargames. I am once again in Cory's hobby room with just a fantastic table. And this is, I think, this is second episode. Where did we start? What just happened?
I have a new codex for an army that I just finished painting.
Okay, well, let's start on that actually. So, Cory, you introduced yourself last episode.
Yep.
Can you give us a quick refresh and tell us a little bit about the army that you're playing and how you've built and painted them up and why they're Skeletor?
Skeletor. Yeah, that's complete. Why is it a Masters of the Universe? Why is
it's
it
so good?
Why is it things? Well, like I said, my painting style is grim dark with a pop.
That's a really good way to describe it, actually, yeah.
Right, which means grim dark, grimy stuff, but then fluorescent things to make it go crazy. So it could be eyes, it could be magic things going on. In this case, it's the bases. So the whole idea here was that they got this kind of gothic kind of tile work, and the back of the models are the bases are like a black kind of color, and then in the front it goes to like a wine red or a neon-y kind of thing, so they're coming out of the darkness.
Yeah.
So Night Lords in midnight clad, so it's them coming unclad, I guess.
Okay.
So that was the vibe. It's based on... It was kind of inspired by Nin John's kind of take on things. He did 2,000 points of this army, and he did it in a week.
Yeah.
And he wasn't really happy with his results, and people gave him some trouble online, and he admitted that he kind of went overboard with some of the glowy effects and stuff he did. I was inspired by it, but I went kind of some different directions than he did.
Okay.
Mainly the bases and some of the choices in terms of how these are more customized for the most part. The heads and the shoulder pads and things like that. The cultists are they're Necromunda gangs that are just terrorists.
Yeah.
And one of them may or may not be undead or servitors, depending on how you want to look at it. But yeah, and it has Conrad Kurz, but we're calling him Nodrad Kurz because more than likely he's actually an imposter, which is a little more Alferus and Alpha Legion, but at the same time, these guys are terrorists. They need a leader. Maybe they want to believe he's still around.
Yeah.
And it's also a little bit vague whether he actually died or not. An assassin said they killed him and that he let him die. So, yeah, that's what it is. I finished these. I think I have everything painted to some extent. I think I'm just adding more things to make certain things look more chaotic. More than putting more skin faces on armor and just leaning in the Night Lords more.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's about it.
The one that I keep looking at is the Contemptor Dreadnought, and it's the eyes. It's the eyes on your Contemptor Dreadnought. And I'm sure there will be like a picture accompanying this on my website or something, but like it's got these very bright fluorescent, like this pinkish glow around the eyes, and the insides are just white, and it just stands out compared to everything else that it's standing next to.
That's the eyes.
Is it?
Yeah. They're dollar store, they're beads.
Wow.
And they're like a pearl kind of metallic.
Okay.
And these are not even painted. I just put some glue and just dropped them in there.
Oh my god.
And I was intending on doing something with them, and maybe painting white or doing something, but they were just...
They look white from here.
Yeah.
Like, I would not have realized.
If anyone's confused, it's a Contemptor Dreadnought, but I actually got rid of the marine head.
Yeah.
And from the skull box, I put just a giant skull protruding from it. it's impossible that that would have actually been the pilot.
Yeah.
But Night Lords.
Yeah, Night Lords.
Is it a chaos growth thing, or is it a trophy? What is it? Does it matter? I don't know.
Is it just like purely aesthetic? Did they just decide I'm going to scare the hell out of somebody today?
Yeah, well, that's and that's been what I've been leaning into is just nightmare fuel, right?
Yeah.
Not in the Death Guard kind of way where it's just like grotesque.
No, this is its distinct own kind of like. This is its own kind of nightmare.
Yeah, and like I said, Night Lords are really all about the putting people's skins as like cloaks and stuff like that. And there's implied in some of the paint shops that that's actually what's going on.
Yeah.
But where I'm doing this Zenithal kind of thing, some of those things don't really read as skin. And I didn't want the skin to be the focus because you have dark models with like skin color.
Yeah.
And I thought it would brighten the models too much. And some characters have it more than others. Nodred Kurz has a whole cape that's a little more skin-like and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I've been basically leaning a little more into the whole vampire aesthetic, especially with the chaos spawn being these weird bat things that look like should have came out of Age of Sigmar or something.
Yeah. Well, I know that like I keep defaulting to either like Masters of the Universe or Castlevania when I'm talking about your army and trying to describe your army. And just the Conrad Kurz model is the most Castlevania piece, I think, out of the whole thing.
It is.
That and the bats, the Chaos Spawn. Like
you throw them in any photo composition and then it just reads.
Yeah.
Conrad Kurz is not the Forge World one, it is just a 3D print. I got off of Etsy, and I think it's honestly a bit better.
I really dig it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about
Talk about dice.
Well, I don't think we can blame the dice here. I don't think we can put this all on the dice.
No.
So basically, we played an incursion game. So we ran basically a 1,000 point game, but we played with 1,200 points worth of stuff. We went with, I'm just going to pull up the mission name now. I think it was Crossfire. And with Crossfire, the idea is you have 4 different objective markers. And it's just kind of standard fare. You're trying to take and hold those objective markers. The deployment zones are one basically quarter of the board for each, with kind of a gap in the middle, which is where I had my fancy new webway gate. But the table itself was just awesome. Loads of forest terrain, ruins, just kind of stacked all over the place.
Super tall trees.
Yes.
Black spires. It's a weird juxtaposition of like Endor with like ruined ruined buildings on it.
I've heard like sometimes, and like I'm trying to remember what it is, but it's like the idea that if you're playing with like a 3x4 space, just as an example, that you want to have like 2x1 just like pure terrain and then like spread it out.
Third of the table is
this one I think goes heavier than that, and I love it. Anyway, sorry. Table is kind of aside.
It would be a tournament nightmare, but I think as aesthetics and really getting theme across and lots of weird cover and things. Like every shot was cover.
Yes. Well, that was a big part of, I think, how this played out. But also, like, at the same time, we're kind of playing Calvin Ball and just having fun with it. And I like the kind of tables that we threw together. Anyway, the game itself. So, it went for 2 turns. Two whole turns. Can you tell me a little bit about some of the units that you took and about some of how you tackled deployment and how you kind of went into this game?
Yeah. So My 3 HQs was a Raging Heroes Demon Princess, and I made her the Warlord just because I'm supposed to put basically marks of Chaos Gods onto units, which I don't really like doing in Night Lords because they don't really buy into that as much as the other legions. So I said, well, I'll throw her in. She's the Warlord. She's the one who they're following. And maybe she's the one who has Conrad Kurz. Maybe there's something going on there where Slanesh is like, I got this guy. I brought Conrad Kurz with me. Let's go and do some things. And I had an 11th hour edition when I went and got the Codex 3 days ago or 2 days ago. I went and got the Hellstalker.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's not a model that I remembered, like... was it one that you posted pictures of? Or
nope, that was finished yesterday.
Wow. Okay.
Yep, that was a super rush job. There are a ton of parts that are not even painted on it, but it's such a busy model, no one would ever know. And a lot of conversion, because I had to... Conrad Kurz, that model actually comes with a helmet that you're supposed to put on the base.
Yeah. And
I actually used the helmet for Conrad Kurz as the helmet on him.
Nice.
Which is hilarious because it's a giant helmet. But it went on a regular Marine. I was ready to pull it off as soon as I did it in case it didn't work. But it worked perfectly, actually. So, win-win.
Yeah.
The Hellstalker dude, he had the Scouring Chain. He removed AP from things that attacked him in melee and things like that. And yeah, Demon Princess, she was the Warlord. She had Smite and a really weird power.
I can't remember the name of it, but it was...
Delightful Agonies.
Yes, that was it.
And it basically gave you feel no pain to any model within 18. And later on, I had to use it on her because I had one major mistake, and luckily you weren't really able to capitalize on it. But I could have lost a Warlord at the end of turn 1 very easily.
Yeah.
And so that's the main competition. The composition is 3 of those. Nodrad Kurz doesn't really have the movement to do anything, and a Chaos Lord can't have jump packs anymore. Because they changed it, and there's actually petitions to undo that in Night Lords.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. There people are not happy about that situation.
I can believe it.
Yeah, because people for years have their Night Lords army, and they have a jump pack champion as their Chaos Lord.
Yeah.
And it's just a model now. Nope, you can never take this again.
Wow.
So I guess you can throw them in as one of your Warp Raptors or something like that, one of your Warp Talons.
Yeah, it seems like an odd exclusion. But...
It's weird. I guess they were afraid of some OP things, but they should have put it in as something only Night Lords could take.
Okay.
And it would have been fine.
Yeah.
I had a couple of groups of Chaos Space Marines. One were all shooty, one were slashy. I had my weird Necromunda people. 6 of them are slashy people, which are actually 3D Drukari models.
Nice.
Drukari. They also call them Drow, I think, on Etsy.
Yeah. And
I have the 6 shooty guys, which were a Necromunda gang. Delak, I think they're called.
Okay.
And all their heads are skulls. Because weirdos.
Yeah.
What else did I take? I took a Contemptor Dreadnought that he cost me a CP. He had Melta and a Chain Fist thing. He moves much faster than I expected he would. 8. I was really surprised by his movement. And
he was booking it.
Yep. And I had 2 Obliterators. And 3 Chaos Spawn bat guys.
Yeah.
Who were running around as well. But that was about it, compositionally.
Okay.
The Obliterators were really weird.
And what I kind of brought to the table that's new this time, because I've talked about my Eldar before, because of course I'm trying to get less bad at using them. That That is kind of the whole point of the show. But I just finished up a Wave Serpent that I'm very happy with. Don't say that you shouldn't have shot it, because you should have shot it, and if I didn't want it to get shot, I shouldn't have brought it into the game.
Yeah. I have a bad tendency of you coming in with your trophy level model and lights and customizations and just pure joy put into these models, and then I just roll some dice and just shoot them away.
Yeah, but like finishing a description of every game with "and the Eldar wept" is if nothing else, it's basically canon.
It's very funny because thematically, Eldar are on the decline. Right?
Yes,
Night Lords barely exist.
Okay.
The 80% of them died in like one of the last battles.
Yeah.
So like they're not even an army anymore. It's hilarious. So it's like the diminishing returns or the diminishing armies face off. There can only be one.
Yeah. Yep.
What did you bring?
So I brought the Wave Serpent. I tried out some Rangers today. I've already got the Shroud Runners done from Eldritch Omens, but now I've finished all of the stuff from the Eldritch Omens box. Other than that, I tried mixing things up a little bit. Instead of taking Fire Dragons, which I did last time, I tried taking 2 squads of Howling Banshees. Because I foolishly assumed that Night Lords were probably going to be a gunline army, which they are not.
Interesting, yep.
So that was a bad call. But I brought Eldrad Elthrin because I'm running Ulthway. I brought a Spirit Seer. I had a couple of squads of Storm Guardians. And I brought in a squad of Wraithguard. And those especially, I think we're gonna chat about in a bit. But a lot of just kind of my usual stuff, plus Wave Serpent and Rangers, basically. And for Psychic Powers, I just went heavy on, like, Smite, Doom, Executioner, Reveal, things that would just kind of do damage and do more damage. Or deny cover. So I guess we'll start with talking about the good things that we each feel like we did in this game. And to kind of give like an overview of the game and how it played out. Victory conditions were that you get 5 points for having 1 objective, 5 points for having 2 objectives, 5 points for having more than your opponent to a maximum of 15. You were leading at the end of turn 2, but it was also a situation where by the end of turn 2, I was basically tabled.
Oh, I'm a guy. Thank you, Hoiba.
So, we could have kept going, but I feel like at that point, you had 3 of the objectives.
Yep.
You had a bunch of stuff parked on each of the objectives, and the only thing that I kind of had left was Eldrad Ulthrin, a squad of Storm Guardians, and 1 out of 5 Wraithguard. So
you could next turn you could have gotten my Warlord.
I could have gotten the Warlord, maybe. I think
if you really leaned into it.
The problem, I think, with getting your Warlord would be that I would have had to basically run Eldrad up the middle and then use Executioner.
Yep.
And it's a situation where I could have gotten the Slay the Warlord points because that's what I took for my secondary objective. Mm-hmm. But after that, I don't have really any way of recovering anything else.
It would have been... Turn 3 would have been bad.
Yeah. And if I had taken out your Warlord, I still would have lost. Maybe it would have been like kind of a...
It would have been worth it for you. It would have been that, well, I lost, but you know what? So did you.
Yeah. So let's talk about the good things that went down during this game. What do you think you brought that performed really well or did really well?
Oh, man. I wasn't disappointed in any of it. It's a terrible, terrible, terrible thing to say. I fully expected the cultists to get, shot off the table, Sisters of Silence style. I just parked them on an objective that was really far away, and I said, "There's 12 of them. If he takes some shots at them and really wanted that objective gone to deny me points, yeah, because I don't want to go and turn around and park a contempt around there and just have 300 and whatever number of points just sitting on an objective doing nothing for the rest of the game."
Yeah.
So even stuff that cost me nothing served its purpose. I usually don't have armies that can do that, which is just I can just take a few people, park them on something, and then those points get me victory points. So yeah, even silly stuff. Marines weren't great. I mean, I always had this expectation that, I guess from the lore, that Marines are just good. But in the grand scheme of things, they're not much better than cultists. And it's just, it's sad. I mean, I guess contempt. I mean, it's not a fair statement, but I guess that they're not that much better where you really go, like, wow. They're not the superheroes that the lore makes them out to be, especially when you compare them to other things in the army. And it's the way that 40k is as well, because you got all these people that are like super tough and everything like that, but all the weapons in the universe just destroy everything.
Yeah, it's the problem with everything being OP. Everything is OP.
Yeah, and it does create this weird glass hammer situation where sometimes like things are just like unbelievable. The weapons are crazy.
Yeah.
Then at the end of the day, I'm saving on a 4.
Yeah.
Right? And then you just start putting 10 models up on the thing, right? But at the end of the day, it wouldn't be a game if things didn't die. Right?
Yeah.
That's what 40k is. But sometimes it is kind of weird. You're just like, yeah, well, those supermen, the Marines, they're all gone now. That's it. Put them up on the table. But that's just the way of things. I was incredibly impressed with movement on things, which was the way that this army is supposed to work. I was even thinking that I made a mistake by not taking the nerfed warp time, because I could really make stuff boogie big time. But they changed warp time, so you can't charge after you did a warp.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, I didn't really need it. A lot of my fighty, runny people were in the middle of the board.
Yeah.
They were in a ruin. I pretty much put all my crazy stuff together in one spot, pretty much in the middle of the table, and just kind of left stuff a little bit flexible, really, because I didn't know where things were going to go. You could have moved that tank anywhere, and this whole game would have happened on the opposite side of the table, possibly. And then you went in and deep strike with your other guys. All this stuff could have happened on the opposite side of the table very easily. Yeah. And I got a telegraph of things. I put the Contemptor. I ended up putting a lot of stuff on one side of the table only because I was reacting to what you were doing, and I didn't really have other good spots for cover.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess in retrospect, that's something I could have used a little bit better. And I think like some of that comes down to the choice of stratagems that I used going into this. But we'll get into that more with.
But I had free deployments after you. I still had other big things I laid down after you were finished. So I had the opportunity to take advantage of, well, he's placed everything. I know where everything is now. So now I can go, cool, and just place those things on the side of the table and make things really that much more rougher. Yeah. As well. Just because I knew where your tank was.
Yes. And the tank had a lot of stuff in it and tied up in it, so, yeah.
Yeah, but in all fairness, I mean, the way the things kind of went, and this is going to be the major theme, I think, of this, is that the points I invested to get rid of things were not necessarily the best choices. Sometimes you were making out like a bandit because of what I was throwing towards things.
And this is where I'm going to mention the things I think I did well. Specifically, Shroud Runners and Rangers. Yep. I think those were definitely the MVPs on my side for this game. Mm-hmm. I think I used them really well in one regard and really poor in another. I'm going to wait on the poor for a bit. But the one thing that I hadn't really been using before, and now that I've got more of those long rifles on the table, being able to target the commanders or being able to target characters, that's...
Yep.
That made a big difference. Like, that mortal wound on 6s, like when you're rolling to wound, that stacks up faster than I thought it would.
Mm-hmm.
And it, like, there was a lot of damage happening to your warlord within, like, the first turn of the game.
Yes. Big time.
And, like...
That character could have been probably gone if the dice had went a little bit differently.
Yeah. And basically what I did, because of Rangers and how they work, is I basically popped the Rangers right onto one of the objectives.
Mm-hmm.
And was
one of the objectives that was right next to me.
Yeah. And then I was basically shooting at you through a building.
And one of the ones you would have got bonus points for.
Yeah. But yeah, I was surprised, but like happily surprised at like how that stacked up and what kind of difference that could make right out of the gate.
Yeah.
And for the points that went into them, it was like 75 points for Rangers, counting 10 points for the Gloomfield, which I would pay for again. And then like 105 for the 3 Shroud Runners. So like that's 180 points, and they just...
You know, you brought those Shroud Runners to the Custodes game, right?
Yes.
Here's my thing with those.
Yeah.
You use those incredibly effectively in the Custodes game, because the problem with them, with that type of unit, you got to move one that can go incredibly fast.
Yeah.
And can use movement shenanigans, and they have long range weapons.
Yeah.
And the temptation with those kind of things, if you have the movement, you're going to move them really far.
Yeah.
But if you move them really far, you're not the super range of your weapon.
Yeah.
Is not necessary.
Yes.
So they have two things that are potentially counterintuitive.
Yes.
Now, with the Custodes game, you ran them up, one of them, you had one left, I think, and you put it up on a building.
Yep.
And it was really far away, and I had to devote so many points to get rid of that damn thing. I had to go and take that friggin' Titan, or that Dreadnought.
Yeah.
And I had to slowly walk it towards and go the wrong direction to get rid of this bike that could go and snipe things and do mortal wounds.
Yeah.
So those guys are, I think, better use for those kind of things are to put them into weird places and make them a problem that the enemy's got to deal with.
Yeah. If I had stuck them, for example, up in the tower that was on this side...
I'd have no way of dealing with it.
Yeah. Because everything was basically up here, and then they just could have... They could have done their thing. But I think it's a situation, and I guess now we'll just move into what we could have done better. I don't think there's a lot that you could have done better, admittedly. I think this...
Well, I made one huge thing, and anyone who plays 40K, they can attest to making sure you don't do this. So, I have no history of playing fighty armies. All my armies I've played are all Astra Militarum, shooty, Deathwatch, only shooty. That only changed very recently with Blade Guard.
Yeah.
The Indomitus box, where actually guys came with actual good swords, and the Astartes chain sword was upgraded. But still, no one wants to be in the fight phase with Deathwatch. Sisters, I don't really play them as the swingy army. I guess if I was playing Bloody Rose or something, but
yeah,
I'm just playing the girls that shoot things. So my experience with the fight phase is, if I'm in the fight phase, I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah.
That's always been my mantra. I would say to people, oh shit, you're in a fight phase, you've already lost.
Yeah.
And people look at you like, why? What are you talking about? I love the fight phase. Okay, well. So it's only with Custodes and Night Lords where I've actually had things that actually you just don't remove models from the table in that phase.
Yeah.
So my mistake, of course, was I had a bunch of things. You had your Rangers and your bikes.
Yeah.
And I kept doing my consolidations, and I made a huge mistake because I got rid of all your Rangers and one of your bikes, and I moved my Warlord, Demon Princess. I moved her up the 3, not realizing I had just taken my Warlord, put him right up front, and had half of your army ready to take out this character. And I had to say, okay, I considered that a lost unit. I said, okay, I've completely screwed up here. I've lost my Psyker, I've lost my Deny, I've lost everything. Luckily, you did take some shots. You did break away. You had her wide open, but I think she had one wound left, and it just couldn't make a stick. So, but like I said, it became a liability at that point, and it was very difficult because I had to choose who was going to make my warlord. But I don't want to make flighty people warlords. It's too dangerous.
Yeah.
I want them to stick back and just do some buffs and things like that. I don't want them to be up front.
Yeah.
So I made a huge mistake, beginner's error, just because I wasn't used to the fight phase. I said should have just left her where it was, took the Chaos Spawn, moved them up to 3 past her.
Yeah.
And everything would have been fine. She would have sat there with 1 wound. I wouldn't have cared. I ended up putting a Psychic Power on her to give her the what's that thing called? Delightful Agonies.
Yes.
So that if you did lean into it, saving on, shrugging up wounds up 5.
Yeah.
And then maybe it would have panned out, but who knows?
Yeah.
So, what did I do wrong? I made a major mistake there, but
I think you recovered from it really well. Like, yeah. I think it was something that could have been a big problem, but you pushed ahead kind of on enough other fronts, and also just kind of rolled with what went wrong well enough that I don't think it ended up making a huge...
My luck with our games is going to run out, because our last bunch of games, I've fallen ass backwards into just playing by instinct. No, I'm not thinking turns ahead.
Yeah.
Just, this is a problem, I'm going to deal with it. And the problem is that traditionally that's caused me huge problems, because I look at the board and it's like, you have more points than I do locked up, because I've been playing reactionary than trying to control the situation.
Yeah.
Now, I've been in the situation locally where I've gotten your units down to a certain point where points didn't matter so much.
Yeah. And
that goes back to what we were talking about the last game with Eldar. Is like, yeah, maybe you keep a couple of dudes completely hidden, so that even if I try to table you, you have that Shroud Runner that's moving around, and he's sitting there in a building, and there's no way I can get to him in the amount of turns. And you know what? You have 1 unit left, and I have my entire army. But when we just count up some points, who won here?
Yep. I think if I had to sum up everything that I kind of did wrong here in one phrase, it would definitely be that I got greedy. And I know I've said that before. I think I said that last time. But running the Shroud Runners up to shoot through the building with the Rangers, that was a bad call. I could have basically parked them, I could have waited a turn or two, and then they just would have been able to...
There were some really nice, super high towers that were real tailor-made spots for ruining people's lives. You could have put 1 guy on each floor.
Yeah. And I think what I need to remember with Shroud Runners, and I think what I need to kind of, I don't know, burn into my brain going forward, is that the range that they have is kind of a nice thing to have as a preventative.
Yes.
And the idea that you put them in a difficult spot, you park them somewhere, but your opponent knows that if they flush them out, they're just going to move somewhere else and do it again.
This board, and this is something super important we got to bring up here.
Yeah.
This board was a big table. This was 7x3, and the deployment was half the board. I started with half of my units halfway up the table.
Yeah.
And for this Hellstalker that moves 12, and Venom Crawler moves 10, Contemptor moves 8.
Yeah. We were basically already starting in the fight phase.
Yeah, and then there was even characters here I was advancing and stuff, and really making the moves. So this is almost like the orc thing. I mean, if you were playing against orcs, at the end of turn 1, you would have had mobs on top of you, just based on that deployment.
A better way to tackle this, and I'm gonna I was gonna move to point it out, but I think I can kind of gesture from here. That tower over there would have been another really good spot. Because if I
Overnight.
wanted to shoot at your warlord,
Yep.
if I wanted to park the Shroud Runners and the Rangers somewhere and just take pot shots,
Yep.
I could have done that,
Yep.
and it would have taken you much longer to reach me there
Yep.
than just going through the building. The problem is, here, I got greedy and wanted not just the warlord, but the objective too.
Yep.
And
Honestly, in terms of firepower and range, I didn't really have anything that shot a real big amount and would have done something. I probably would have had to end up going over and smiting him or something, and doing something. But it would have been a big problem. I don't know what I would have. I'd have to go and I would have had to have stopped, went through my profiles and said, okay, what do I have here that's got 36 inches or got whatever that I can shoot up and across the board and really see that. Like I said, those models are a little bit oxymoronic because you do have the range and the shoot and the range to shoot and the move, and that's great.
But it can be tempting to use.
It's tempting to say, okay, well, I'm just going to run over here and take this objective, but I'm in enemy territory, and half of what makes this unit great, maybe even more than half, I'm negating because I don't need the shooting range anymore.
Yeah.
When in actuality, what you want to make do with those is just make them a really annoying unit.
Yeah.
They're almost like the assassin guys. As when you take the Imperium agents, the guy with a sniper rifle, he shoots across the board and gets run a lookout, sir.
Yeah.
And you throw him up in some building and you say, come get me.
Yeah.
Right? And then that's a character you put in the Imperium, your Imperium list, where your enemy's got to go and deal with it.
Yeah.
I got to find some way to go over and shoot them, and it's just annoying. That's kind of what those things are.
Yeah.
But even better in some ways because you're able to pivot.
Yeah.
If I come over after you, say, oh, fuck you, and you run over to another, you come over here.
Yeah. You've invested all this time moving stuff over to deal with me, and I can very easily just pull stuff back, and then you have to do it again.
Yeah. I'm just swinging back and forth trying to deal with it. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're a really interesting unit. I'm trying to think of analogs in other armies that can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. I mean, I'm sure people who are well more versed in the game than me and you could name off.
More than likely, yeah.
But man, like
I think there's one in Gene Stealer cults. I feel like they've got one.
That sounds right. Probably in Tyranids and stuff as well. There's probably some flying characters that got a lot of range and stuff like that. But it's not something that I can think of. I mean, I'm thinking about Astra Militarum. Maybe actually, you know what? Any planes. But the problem with big flyers is big flyers are hard to hide. These tiny bikes on little tiny flight stands.
Yeah.
It's not like trying to fly around a Chorus Black Star or like a DACA jet or like. You can't hide those things. Like they're hard. They're hard to. But you got these little tiny bikes, man. You got 3 of them. Do you have to take 3?
Yes, 3 is the.
4?
You can take. I think. How high does it go? I think it either goes up to like. It's either 6, 9, or 10. I don't remember offhand, but I think if I was going to build up on those, I'd go to a squad of 5, maybe.
Yeah.
But I think it's also a thing where like you only really need 3 of them to do what. They do?
Well, imagine if you had 2 units of them.
True, yeah.
Side of the board, and just ruining people's days. But I mean, it really depends. If I was playing Death Watch or something like that, I would have had way more solutions to them.
Yeah.
Because once you start dealing with bigger artillery and tanks and dreadnoughts, if I had a dreadnought with a different weapon, with something else, some kind of plasma gun or something like that, a plasma cannon, it probably wouldn't have been a big deal. I could have probably done whatever I was planning on doing, turn around for a second, boom, and then just keep moving on. But this more fighty kind of army, the last 2 games have been these fighty armies where I didn't really have good solutions to those problems.
Yeah. And I think something that I need to start doing more is recognizing that I don't need to take a long-range unit and fly it right up into your face when what you're using is largely fighting.
Yeah. And, I mean, like I said, this is an experience.
Yeah.
Because, like, you didn't know how this army was going to operate.
Yeah.
I dropped that Hellstalker today, but you knew a Venom Crawler was coming.
Oh, yeah.
You were pretty sure that thing was coming.
And I knew about Conrad Kurz and about the Contemptor. So it's not like I had no warning going into this.
Yeah. But, like, at the same time, I parked everything in the middle of the board, and I really didn't have...
Yeah.
I didn't know where things were going to go. And it was only when you placed the Rangers down...
Yeah.
And you went mine, and I'm like, whoa, okay, well, I can get over there. I can deal with that. I'm going to be making big moves, and I might as well just move in that direction. Yeah. But, like I said, the Rangers cost you 60 points?
It's 65 for Rangers and then 10 for the Gloomfield.
Yep.
And I think Gloomfield is worth it just to get that extra cover.
Yep.
I mean, depending on the situation. I guess if I was parking them somewhere on the other side of the board, it wouldn't be as important. Mm-hmm. If I was somewhere where I had, for example, dense cover anyways. The other thing that I kind of want to touch on and that I think I need to wrap my head around on and work on is points accounting and also making sure that I'm taking the right tools for the right jobs. Because I think one of the issues that I ran into with this game, when we look at like Storm Guardians, Howling Banshees, they only have basically pistol weapons and are set up. Yeah, the Storm Guardians have the fusion guns, and so they can do like a few hard-hitting...
Sit on objectives.
Yeah. And Banshees, if they're able to get into melee and if they're able to attack, they can do a lot of damage now.
That's steal objectives.
Yeah. But I think one of the issues that I'm running into is that Eldar is like one of these armies where everything that you bring should be kind of a precision tool for a specific, like, precision job.
Yep.
And I'm just kind of throwing everything in like it's supposed to be a multi-purpose Space Marine. Yep. And that's not a great way to... And, I mean, talking about points accounting, the Wraithguard only got to basically fire once, and that was 200 points out of my 1,200. Like, that, and I think... I mean, Banshees, right now, I'm looking at around 100 a squad each, and I'm looking at around 100 a squad each for the Guardians as well.
Yep.
I think I gotta come up with a better solution.
You were talking about your point allocation and that things are not necessarily Swiss Army knives and that things are pointed in a certain way and that's it.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is like the Wave Serpent is very versatile.
Yeah.
That is the Swiss Army knife because you're trying to run around dudes. It's got hella movement.
Yeah.
It's got lots of weapons.
Yeah.
And it's even though, and this is the part to be fair here, I got that on the button.
Yeah.
I did 11 damage with Melt-A-Gun.
Yeah.
So that should have been around turn 2 and causing problems.
Yeah.
If I was 1 point off, that objective would not have been... That would have been a completely different situation. You would have had the tank and the guys.
Yep.
You would have dropped in your 5 dudes with their crazy weapons.
Yep.
And Contemptor would have been gone.
That was what I was hoping for. And when I dropped the Wraithguard in, that's kind of how I was hoping to salvage some of this, was to take out the Contemptor and then push the Banshees up the middle. But I think, like... Yeah, I think what I'm going to kind of have to do is largely take my army back to the drawing board and figure out what I want to do with this army or what I want this army to do.
Yep.
Because I think that right now I've got a lot of different moving parts that don't necessarily work together. or that don't really work in concert with each other. Like, Howling Banshees are great for being like a blender against like gunline or infantry units, and they could have been really good for that here. And maybe the play would have been to get them doing that on one side of the board, while the Shroud Runners and the Rangers were basically picking things off while you had the Banshees right in your face and were trying to do something about them. Mm-hmm. I think that would have been a better way than... I think in some ways I was fighting a bunch of little pocket battles instead of one big battle, or seeing the whole board and not just... And we also mentioned when we finished this game, the idea of playing too smart or playing too hard on the objective game or with stratagems or using too much brain. And I think that's something I've got to work on too, because if I wasn't as focused on getting all the objectives and doing all of the things at any one given point in time, I think this would have played out a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, there's revisionist history here because, like I said, the tank could have stuck around.
Yeah.
Your boys would have shut down with them. You would have unloaded your Banshees.
Yeah.
And all I had on that side of the table was the Contemptor, 2 sets of Marines. They didn't really perform that well. And a bunch of cultists.
Yeah, that's true.
So you could have had those 2 objectives, that end of the board, on lockdown by the end of turn 2. Had things gone slightly different.
Yeah.
Then all I would have had was the Hellstalker.
Yeah.
I'd be walking that into just a bunch of your problems.
Yeah.
Conrad, which never really... He was too slow to do anything. R.I.P. jump packs.
Yeah.
And my guys, my melee guys who are running around. But the melee guys who are running around, they're on the opposite side of the board. So it would have been this weird thing where we would have been trading objectives, where you have 2 and I have 2, and it would have just got weird. And then
one of us would have needed to take out the other's warlord, or would have needed to capitalize on secondary objectives.
I think the tank going as quickly as it did, the way it did, and then that left that side of the board too vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I was lucky to have the units over there to deal with it. Because like I said, over this area here, I had so much stuff there.
Yeah.
And all the Marines went pretty quick.
Yeah.
And
well, maybe a better way to deal with it, and again, revisionist history, but I'm throwing this out there. If I had hidden my Wave Serpent away behind either all the Munitorium crates or in the cover at the back of the board, and just waited, and then the next turn moved in, unloaded, and then rushed.
Movement.
And I think I need to remember that I have the movement. I don't necessarily need to use it right out of the gate, which is kind of the mistake I made with the Shroud Runners as well. Because they get that move, I could have just stuck them up here, and then they would have been a nuisance for the whole game.
Yeah, I think it was the luck of what ended up happening.
Yeah.
Because if I had whipped those dice or not had done as well, you would have had a lot more units out.
Yeah.
But the tradition of me taking a tank off one of your prize tank off the board turn 1, whether it was...
Do not apologize, because oh my god.
No, I there's 2 things that often happen, and see the other mistake I kind of do too, which is when you have 1 unit left or 1 model left in a unit.
Yeah.
Why am I shooting at the 1 unit or the one model when I actually need that to charge to get all my movement? And there was a point where I started firing away at stuff. And I'm like, why am I doing this? I already rolled the dice, but I should not have done that.
Yeah.
I need that there to make sure I have something to charge to make this train continue.
No, that makes sense.
And that's one of the classic kind of problems too, right? That's just my inexperience of playing ranged.
Okay.
Or sorry, melee focus things and charging. But I watch people play, and then they do the same thing. They say, stop.
Yeah.
What am I doing? I need that one unit left there, and hope, or not even one unit, because you don't want them to fail morale either.
Yeah.
And that's a weird chink in the armor for the Night Lords too, is that it's if they're so based on running around and doing melee and stuff with the Hellstalker and these sort of units, if you're going around and I shoot up something, or if I do some damage to a bunch of your infantry,
Yeah.
I don't want you to fail attrition and morale, because if you wipe out that whole thing, I got nothing to charge anymore. So that's another thing that I gotta be careful with. Luckily, you pass all your stuff really easily, because Night Lord's leadership and morale shenanigans did absolutely nothing against this army.
Yeah.
I had a blank trait, so like I said, it's arguably the worst one in the book because of that.
Yeah. But, like, I think it was also just a matter of the matchups, because a lot of the Eldar leadership is, like, high enough that, yeah. But
there's no way, there's nothing I can do against it.
Yeah. But yeah, that was that game. And do you think, is there anything we want to say about the meta or about?
Well, I mean, I guess when I first started doing stuff 40K, I think it was the end of maybe 8th that had come out.
Yeah.
It was the end of 7th, and Eldar were like the best.
Yeah.
And so I always have this opinion that like Eldar are scary stuff, and I'll run into someone in a game store and they'll say something about Eldar, and I'll go, yeah, no, that's just by reputation. I play games against Eldar, but I feel like I've been more lucky than anything else if I've done well. So yeah, just by reputation, they're good.
Yeah.
I have new Codex syndrome here with all the new shinies, but I only got this book 2 days ago, and Aspect Tactics gave me a couple of pointers on how to play the damn thing, but there was just too many rules. I mean,
Yeah.
Any professional, anyone who had any sense would be able to just shake their head at everything I did. What are you doing? Why are you doing that? So, yeah, it's... Luckily, we are, like you said, filthy casuals, and...
Yes. And loving it.
Yeah, exactly, right?
I also, like, I feel like we can only put so much of this on new Codex syndrome.
Oh, yeah.
Because Eldar have also had a relatively recent Codex.
Yes, yeah.
And also just based on, like, the different tier lists that I've seen popping up and, like, rankings. Eldar should be doing good. And I think what I'm running into is less a problem with, well, Eldar aren't performing well, and more, I'm not using this right. And I need to figure out how to do that better. And once I figure that out, maybe we'll start to see things kind of come together a little different.
Yeah, I mean, I was really surprised because, like, our previous games before your new Codex, I mean, you had Oathway, and there were times when you had dice on fire when big stuff was coming in, and nope, he's still alive, still one wound, still alive, and it's like...
Yeah. I miss that feel no pain.
Yeah.
And they still have a feel no pain, but it applies only with mortal wounds, which would be great if you were trying to do mortal wounds to me, but you're not.
Bad matchup.
Like, the Oathway craft world now is, like, kind of... I'm trying to think how to phrase it. It's more multi-purpose. Like, there's something for psychic abilities, there's something for wound rolls that I kind of forgot to use. But I did remember Strands of Fate. I'm patting myself on the back because I did remember to use Strands of Fate this time.
There was reminder sheets.
Yeah. Oh man, that saved my bacon a little. But yeah, I think I don't know if I've got anything else to add, like as far as where this fits into the meta or what this says about the 40k meta right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's meta that it's going to get rewritten and probably sooner than later with another edition and more outdated codexes and more band-aids put on things. And
this might become a one-page rules podcast.
Well, yeah, I guess you could have a little addendum there about that where I was doing a solo one-page rules thing, and the water's fine over here. Just because the rules bloat is gone, but you are trading it for a lot of the flavor of things. But you want to charge, you just charge. You walk past an objective, that's mine now. I'm just going to keep going.
Yeah.
And that's particularly nice in armies where you have less model counts.
I can see that. I can definitely see that.
Right? You have a Titan or some kind of knight or something. You just walk over an objective, just keep walking. You don't have to park 600 points on an objective, and
yeah.
So yeah, it's very interesting. It's something that I'm going to explore a lot more, and cause, especially if I'm just doing some test solo games and stuff like that, I don't have to keep 2 books in my head at the same time.
Yeah. Fair. Like I think 40K it's regardless a useful rule set to know and to kind of be somewhat current on, because it's what everyone in this neck of the woods kind of plays.
Yep. But
yeah, like I don't think for us it's going anywhere, but oh god, I am not looking forward to 10th edition.
Yeah, like I said, what I want out of 10th, they're not going to give me, so I'm fine with that.
Yeah,
and I would love to see alternating activations and things like that. And playing one-page rules is like, at least that's giving me what I want out of it.
Yeah,
and it's fine now that there's 2 different games and they operate 2 different ways. And if I want to do alternating activations, I'll just play that game.
Yeah,
and just do it that way. But we are seeing some things like in Horus Heresy with more interrupts and stuff like that, so they are making it more engaging for the other player.
More trap card activations.
Yeah, like, oh, you shot, but because you shot, I did this. Well, I don't get Overwatch, I get shoot back. And we're saying things like that kind of go on. And like I said, Sigmar and Sigmar and something else. There's 2 other things that they use as training ground. Then Heresy, those are going to be the training grounds for 10th, because you often see when they'll try things in Sigmar and then import those kind of ideas in 40K. So
yeah,
there might be big moves in 10th, but like I was saying to you earlier, they're not going to radically change the game, because it is a tournament thing, and people have been playing the game relatively the same way for 20 years.
Yeah.
And they're not gonna go too crazy with alternate activations. Maybe it's something you bring into Crusade or something, or you bring that into like a subset.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, and that would probably be the smarter way of doing it. It's like, well, if you want to play Crusade, here are some extra rules with it.
Yeah. And
then you don't hurt the tournament crowd, who are just going to say, well, we don't like it, we're just going to keep playing 9th.
Yeah.
And not buy your books. So.
And on that cheery note, before we wrap this all up, I know you'd mentioned it last show, but for your Night Lords or for stuff that you've like painted recently, do you have anything like social media or anywhere that people can find your work?
Yeah, I post things at Kinpatsu Samurai on Instagram, and that's usually where the dailies in terms of where I'm to and work progress and those sort of things are happening. But beyond that, I mean, I do some local posting of things to our local game stores and that kind of thing. But beyond that, I think on a Night Lords Facebook group or something like that, I might drop something in, like those sort of things. But beyond that, I'm not really doing anything with Twitter or TikTok, anything like that. TikTok or Warhammer.
Yeah, that I'm not touching that. No, Twitter and TikTok are scary. I'm not going near those.
Yeah. I'm sure the people will tell you how you're doing it wrong. So
more than likely, yeah. Anyway, yeah, that is all. This was fun, and let's get out of here. Thanks for listening to this episode of Path of Casuals and Filth, and a big thank you to Cory for joining me on the podcast. Intro and outro music for Path of Casuals and Filth is Coral Reef from DJ Cutman's Free to Stream album. If you want to see pictures from these games or pictures of some of the miniatures work I've done, you can find it at www.budgiebristles's.ca, where you can follow my social media links to my YouTube and Instagram, stay safe, stay casual, and above all, stay filthy.